Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can export your project from CrochetPARADE in different formats. So let's start with one of the examples. We can start with the stocking. Here are the instructions. If you press calculate and show model in 3D, it will show up here. The model will show up here on the right. It takes about a minute to calculate, so I already pre-calculated over here. So here is the three-dimensional model. If you press the keyboard button C, if you press C once you select the 3D model, you can see the stocking in color. You can look at the heel and the cuff and so on and so on. So let's look at these options here. In a different video, I showed you how you can export the model, the three-dimensional model, as a GLTF file, which is compatible with Blender, where you can import it and manipulate it. Today we're gonna look at these other options. So first of all, let's start with the first one, where we can save the instructions as a text file. Let's look at the text file and see what it looks like. Okay, so let's open it up. Okay, so as you can see, the instructions are here, same as what you see here in the website. There are a couple of differences. Of course, all the highlights are gone. The other difference is the appearance of this paragraph symbol here at the beginning of each line. The reason I'm including it is the following. New lines in the CrochetPARADE language are important because whenever you hit enter, the code treats that as a new row or a new round, which means the attachment point, unless it's specified, which actually in this case it is specified, the attachment point starts from the beginning of the previous round. Meaning, what does that mean? Well, if I hit enter here, this half double crochets, the first one of them is going to attach to the chain of the previous row. Well, but it shouldn't, because it's supposed to be on the previous line, which means this chain, well, this half double crochet is supposed to attach to the chain here, and then meaning to the first stitch of the previous row, and as you go along, you just continue adding these stitches consecutively in the stitches of the previous row. So again, new lines are important. That's what I'm trying to convey. So imagine you copy these instructions and you put them somewhere on the internet, or you share them with somebody. Well, often when you share plain text, often different applications may introduce new lines in order to be able to fit long lines in a particular width of the screen. Often this is called line wrapping, as I'm sure you know. Line wrapping like this will introduce spurious new lines here in the beginning of this line, for example, or this line, which will confuse the code and it will produce errors. So that's why I'm putting these paragraphs symbols here, so that if sharing this text file introduced such spurious new lines, then they won't affect the final result. So if I copy this, so again, you share this file, there are spurious new lines which shouldn't be there. You copy it and send it to a friend, or maybe you put it on the internet and somebody wants to crochet this pattern. They copy this text and they paste it. Let me delete this here. And they paste it here in the crochet instructions. Voila, all the paragraph symbols are gone, and the website automatically unwrapped this line. Remember what I did here? I hit enter at the end of this this piece of code, exclamation mark 1A, which again I know we haven't talked about, but we will. So all the spurious new lines are gone. So again, that's why I've introduced these paragraph symbols here, so that sharing won't destroy your instructions or your project if you share them. At the top, I also the code adds a line that these instructions are originally written in the first version of the CrochetPARADE language. I'm putting this line here on purpose because I may change some of the specifications of the language, and I want to make sure that if somebody used an older version of the language, they won't lose the ability to display their instructions on the website. This way, I will ensure backwards compatibility. So, what are the other options of exporting our project? Well, if you like the highlights here and you have a color printer and you just want to print these and you can follow the code, you become so proficient following the CrochetPARADE code that you can just look at these and understand what these instructions are saying. You can just export the instructions with highlights, and when you do that, it allows you to print the instructions again with highlights. Let me zoom that a little bit. And again, the paragraph symbols are there because, as you can see, this line here, let me zoom in on it, was line wrapped, so there was a spurious new line. So again, the paragraph symbol is important. It tells you this is part of the same line, and you can save this as PDF or just print it if you want. So let me close that. What are the other options? Well, you can save this file here as a Graphviz DOT file. Now, what does that mean? Graphviz is an open source software which is designed to produce different graphs, as in graph theory, which means the different dots connected with lines. Think of it that way. So that's the engine, the physics engine behind creating models here in CrochetPARADE. So as a first step, what the website, what my code does is it takes your instructions and translates them to something called a dot file, which is fed into Graphviz, which eventually produces the three-dimensional models. Now you might, if you're proficient at Graphviz, you might want to change some of those parameters in the dot file. So this is an easy way to export the dot file and then manipulate it the way you see fit. Okay, so let's open the dot file and let's look at it. So this is the dot file. You see it has quite a bit of information. Just to give you an idea, it tells you, whoops, let me scroll up. It tells you the dimensions of the model. There it's a three-dimensional model, type of model, and each of these are nodes. So this is the first row, again counting from 0, first stitch of the whole project, and this is the label. This is the context where the stitch came from your code. So beware, if you're sharing a dot file, it has all the information, the stitching information from your project. And again, each and every stitch has its information here saved. And then further down, if you scroll down, it tells you how different stitches are connected and with what length of yarn. And it tells you the different colors and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so again, if you don't care about Graphviz, that's totally fine. You can just disregard that option. Now, if you run the model, like I did here, and again, you save the Graphviz dot file. This time, the Graphviz dot file has an extra piece of information. It actually has the positions of the nodes. Okay, so it's in 3 dimensions. The positions are not normalized. I believe by default they're in points, and now I'm blanking on that, as opposed to in inches. But anyway, you can just use these coordinates if you want to recreate the 3-dimensional model in any type of other software that you want. The exclamation mark here tells Graphviz that these points should be fixed. And again, if you don't care about Graphviz, then just disregard this. All right, what else is there? Well, you can save the project as a SVG image. So let's try that. So I'm just going to use the default DPI dots per inch, and I'm going to save this graph. Okay, let's open it. So right now the SVG file shows you exactly the same view here, except here it's a perspective projection, and this is orthogonal projection, so you might see a little bit of a difference in the distortions at the edges. Okay, so now that we've exported the project to an SVG file, let's look at the SVG file itself. Here it is, and as you can see, you can see all the stitches, how they're connected to each other. This is stitch 57, row 57, stitch number 6, again starting counting from 0. The type is single crochet back loops only, and you can see how it connects with all the rest of the stitches. Here, if you follow the blue lines, you can see that crocheting is works in rows, going up and down the cuff. This is the cuff of the stocking. Now this is a three-dimensional project, so as you can see here, it's a little bit of a mess. So how can you disentangle what's going on here? Well, with three-dimensional projects, there is no easy, straightforward way to do it. Something you might consider is maybe, let's see, if I want to just look at how the heel is done, I want to hide all stitches beyond, let's say, row 32 or 31, starting from 0, because this is stitch 31, in row 31, stitch 0. So this is what you can do. Let me actually show you what I'm pressing here. If you press Shift and click, you reset the information label. So if you press Ctrl H, it asks you, I can hide all the stitches after the row number that you input. So I want to hide everything after row number 31. Bam. And you can orient your pattern in a way where, okay, so here at the heel, maybe you want to look at, especially in this section of the stocking, there is no overlap between, let me hide the information, there is no overlap between this layer of the stocking and the back side of the stocking. So again, if it's like that, you know that all these stitches will overlap each other. If I do like this, if I move it like that, then there will be no overlap. So I'm going to export this view to an SVG image. And now let's look at that. You can see all these stitches are gone, and now you can actually focus on what's going on here at the fold of the heel. So anyway, this is how you export files to SVG. Now, if you think this font is too small, if you wanted to print it, you can increase the font size. Oops. By changing the default dots per inch. So let's say I do, the default is 1500, let's say I do 800 here, and I press OK. And I save this, and I open it. And as you can see, oops, I meant to open it in Inkscape. The Brave browser has some issues. It doesn't render all the arrows for some reason. You can see now the font is bigger, and it may be a little bit too bigger. So you can play with that setting to your liking. Okay, so that's that. And if you wanna debug your project, let's say not debug your project. If there is some issue with compiling your project, you can save the debug information. And there is a ton of information here, which would tell me, the developer, or anybody that gets familiar with the code, can help them understand where things broke. Anyway, so these are the save and export options on CrochetPARADE.org. Hope you find this video useful. Take care.